clean air that they're inhaling, smoke, which is deadly eventually. So there are many things like that nowadays, not only because of cigarettes, but other things. We have 9 holes in the body, and whatever goes into those 9 holes determines who we are. So we have to be very, very careful of what enters the 9 holes of the body. Text number 7. Okay, we'll go to text number 6. I'm sorry. An intelligent man in human society should make his own program of activities very simple. If there are suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers, or anyone else, he should externally agree, saying, yes, that is all right. But internally, he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life will not be fulfilled. Very nice purport. Not purport, very nice verse. In other words, it's saying, if there are suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers, or anyone else, he should externally agree, saying, yes, that is all right. But internally, he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life will not be fulfilled. Okay? Be very careful not to accept bogus theories that will take us away from Krishna consciousness. Text number 7. The natural products created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be utilized to maintain the bodies and souls of all living entities. Let me read that again. The natural products created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be utilized to maintain the bodies and souls of all living entities. The necessities of life are 3 types: those produced from the sky, from rainfall, from the earth, from the mines and seas or the fields, and from the atmosphere, that which is obtained suddenly, and unexpected. Okay. Purport. We living entities in different forms are all children of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. We're all born from Krishna. That which is, okay, as confirmed by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 14.4, Sarvayoni Sukonteya, Murtaya Sambhavantiya, Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir Aham Bija Pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, is the Father of all living entities in different species and forms. One who is intelligent can see that all living entities in the 8,400,000 bodily forms are part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are his sons. Everything within the material and spiritual worlds is the property of the Supreme Lord. Ishavaisham midam sarvam, and therefore everything has a relationship with him. Srila Rupa Goswami says in this regard, Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna Mamokshubi Parityago Vairagyam Falgu Katyate. One who rejects anything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is incomplete in his renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.256. Although Mayavadi philosophers say that the material creation is false, actually, it is not false. It is factual. But the idea that everything belongs to the human society is false. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for everything is created by Him. All living entities, being the Lord's sons, His eternal parts and parcels, have the right to use their Father's property by nature's arrangement. As stated in the Upanishads, Tena Tyaktena Unjita Ma Vida Tasya Svidanam. Everyone should be satisfied with the things allotted him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one should encroach upon another's rights or property. Okay, well, that's a very important statement of the proper way to live. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Anad Bhavanti Bhutani Parjanyad Anasambhava Yajnat Bhavati Parjanyo Yajna Karma Samudbhava. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajnas or sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Bhagavad Gita 3.14. When food grains are sufficiently produced, both animals and human beings can be nourished without difficulty for their maintenance. This is nature's arrangement. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai dunai karmani sarvasa. Everyone is acting under the influence of material nature, and only fools think that they can improve upon what God has created. That's right. You don't have to invent anything. Krishna has already invented everything that is essential for a living entity to live. The householders are specifically responsible for seeing that the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are maintained without fighting between men, communities, societies, or nations. Human society should properly utilize the gifts of God, especially the food grains that grow because of rain falling from the sky. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yajnat Bhavati Parjanya, so that rainfall will be regulated, humanity should perform yajnas, sacrifices. Yajnas were previously performed with offerings of oblations of ghee and food grains. But in this age, of course, this is no longer possible. For the production of ghee and food grains has diminished because of the sinful life of human society. However, people should take to Krishna consciousness and chant the Hare Krishna mantra as recommended in the Shastras. Yajnai Sankirtana Parar Yajanti Hi Sumedasa. If people throughout the world take to the Krishna consciousness movement and chant the easy sound vibration of the transcendental name and fame of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there will be no scarcity of rainfall. Consequently, fruits and flowers will be properly produced and all the necessities of life will be easily obtained. To see what happens when we follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. There will be no, uh, let's see, uh, there will be plenty of food grains, fruits, and flowers, and they'll be properly produced, and all the necessities of life will be easily obtained. Grihastas, or householders, should take the responsibility for organizing such natural production. It is therefore said, Tashaiva Hito Prayate Takobida. An intelligent person should try to spread Krishna consciousness through the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, and all the necessities of life will automatically follow. There it is. That's why we're chanting Hare Krishna every day. Because by chanting of the holy name of the Lord, then all necessities of life will automatically follow. Well, we should test that. We should be chanting Hare Krishna every day, which is what we're doing. And by doing that, by the mercy of the Lord, all the necessities of life will automatically follow. That is wonderful Krishna conscious philosophy. Text 8. One may claim proprietorship to as much wealth as required. Oh, this is important. That means that we should not take more than what we are, that more than our minimum needs. If we take more than our minimum needs, then we will become what you would call devoured by lust, anger, and greed. One may claim proprietorship to as much wealth as required to maintain body and soul together. But one who desires proprietorship over more than that must be considered a thief, and he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature. Yeah, we have to be careful not to take more than what we need. Otherwise, we are going to be punished by the laws of material nature. Purport. By God's favor, we sometimes get large quantities of food grains or suddenly receive some contribution or unexpected profit in business. In this way, we may get more money than needed. Some people think there's no such thing as more money than needed. They just want to keep accumulating more and more money. So, how should that be spent? Very good question. There is no need to accumulate money in the bank merely to increase one's bank balance. Such a mentality is described in Bhagavad Gita 16.13 as asuric or demoniac. Yeah, hoarding more money than what we need is actually demoniac. Idam adya maya labdam imam prapsyaye manoratam idam astidam api me bhavishyati punardanam. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. The Asura is concerned with how much wealth he has in the bank today and how it will increase tomorrow. But unrestricted accumulation of wealth is not permitted either by the Shastra or in the modern age by the government. Actually, if one has more than one requires for his necessities, the extra money should be spent for Krishna. According to the Vedic civilization, it should all be given to the Krishna consciousness movement as ordered by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 9:27. Yat karosi yadasnasi, yat juhosi dadasi yat tapasya sikonte yat tat kurushva madar vanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering to me, meaning Krishna. Grihastas should spend extra money only for the Krishna consciousness movement. The Grihastas should give contributions for constructing temples of the Supreme Lord and for preaching of Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm sorry, Srimad Bhagavad Gita or Krishna consciousness all over the world. Shinvan Bhagavato Vikshanam Avatara Katam Ritam. In the Shastras, the Puranas, and other Vedic literatures, there are so many narrations describing the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of God. And everyone should hear them again and again. That's very important. For example, if we read the entire Bhagavad Gita every day, all 18 chapters, in each reading we shall find a new explanation. In other words, we should, when we come to the end of the Bhagavad Gita, we should begin from the beginning again and read, because we'll always find something new that we missed. That is the nature of transcendental literature. The Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, affords one an opportunity to spend this extra earning for the benefit of all human society by expanding Krishna consciousness. In India, especially, we see hundreds and thousands of temples that were constructed by the wealthy men of society who did not want to be called thieves and be punished. This verse is very important. Okay, there it is. This verse is very important. As stated here, one who accumulates more money than needed is a thief, and by the laws of nature, he will be punished. One who acquires more money than necessary becomes desirous of enjoying natural comforts more and more. Materialists are inventing so many artificial necessities, and those who have money, being allured by such artificial necessities, try to accumulate money to possess more and more. This is the idea of modern economic development. Everyone is engaged in earning money, and the money is kept in the bank, which then offers money to the public. In this cycle of activities, everyone is engaged in getting more and more money. And therefore, the ideal goal of human life is being lost. Consistently, it may be said that everyone is a thief and is liable to be punished. Punishment by the laws of nature takes place in a cycle of birth and death. No one dies fully satisfied by fulfillment of material desires, for that is not possible. Therefore, at the time of one's death, one is very sorry, being unable to fulfill his desires. By the laws of nature, one is then offered another body to fulfill his unsatisfied desires. And upon taking birth again, accepting another material body, one voluntarily accepts the threefold miseries of life. Threefold miseries of life. Text number 9. One should treat animals such as deer, camels, asses, monkeys, mice, snakes, birds, and flies exactly like one's own son. How little difference there actually is between children and these innocent animals. Let me read that again. It's very interesting word. One should treat animals such as deer, camels, asses, monkeys, mice, snakes, birds, and flies exactly like one's own son. How little difference there actually is between children and these innocent animals. Purport. One who is in Krishna consciousness understands that there is no difference between the animals and the innocent children in one's home. Even in ordinary life, it is our practical experience that a household dog or cat is regarded on the same level as one's children, without any envy. Like children, the unintelligent animals are also sons of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, a Krishna conscious person, even though a householder, should not discriminate between children and poor animals. Unfortunately, modern society has derived many means of killing animals in different forms of life. For example, in the agricultural fields, there may be many mice, flies, and other creatures that disturb production, and sometimes they are killed by pesticides. In this verse, however, such killing is forbidden. Whoa. Yeah, well, when they use the pesticides, they might get rid of all these so-called uh, new unnecessary creatures, but they will then eat the pesticide. Uh, the food will be contaminated by the pesticide. Every living entity should be nourished by the food given by the Supreme Personality of God. In other words, that means they shouldn't use pesticides. Human society should not consider itself the only enjoyer of all the properties of God. Rather, men should understand that all the other animals also have a claim to God's property. In this verse, even the snake is mentioned, indicating that a householder should not be envious even of a snake. If everyone is fully satisfied by eating food that is a gift from the Lord, why should there be envy between one living being and another? Good questions. In modern days, people are very much inclined towards communistic ideas of society, but we do not think that there can be any better communistic idea than that which is explained in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Even in the communistic countries, the poor animals are killed without consideration, although they also should have the right to take their allotted food with which to live. Okay, so this is interesting because it says, one who is in Krishna consciousness understands that there is no difference between the animals and the innocent children in one's home. And that means that we should not unnecessarily torture animals. Like, for example, I've read that in previous times, people would not kill dangerous animals. They would consider, like for example, they would leave food for rats or for snakes, especially snakes, and that's why here it says one should treat animals such as deer, camel, asses, monkeys, mice, snakes, birds, and flies exactly like one's own son. How little difference there actually is between children and these innocent animals. But did he mention snakes? Oh, he said mice. Okay. No, he
snakes
mentioned
also.
snakes.
Yeah, snakes is in the verse.
Yeah, mentioned snakes. So I remember reading one book. It wasn't a Krishna conscious book, but there's a book about the culture in Armenia in ancient times. People would have, they would feed snakes that would appear in their house. And they would not be afraid of the snakes. And they would always leave something for the snakes to eat. And they would respect the fact that there's a snake that lives in their house or underneath the house, or but wouldn't show itself. So they would always leave food for the snake. Okay, so
Maharaj.
yeah,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Maharaj, but some of the animals can be dangerous. Let's
some
say
of what
some of the animals
animals.
can be dangerous. Like for example, snakes might bite you and you might die, and things like rats or flies. They come into the home, then they might bring other diseases from other place, and you might get infected. Given these consequences, how should you think about those consequences, Maharaj? Because there is some bad stuff that might happen because of these animals. How do you treat them equally as children?
Okay, well, it all depends how much faith you have in Krishna. People that don't have any faith at all, they'll immediately, kill. Let's say uh, different creatures that enter the house, so including a snake.
Mm.
But uh, there are uh, there are situations in which people will feed the snake. In other words, leave food for the snake and not be intimidated by the snake living, like in the house. Maybe not openly all the time, but they know that they have a snake living in the you know underneath the house. So people would keep uh, food for such snakes. Instead of trying to kill the snake, they would just leave food for the snake, and the snake would not try to attack them. By the way, snakes will not attack you if you leave them alone. They'll only attack when they feel that they are, in danger. And especially if you feed the snake, then it will be, uh, you know, It'll be your friend in many ways. Now we shouldn't like say, oh, okay, then I can buy a snake and I can leave it in the house and it'll be okay, slithering around. Well, our relatives come. No, well, anyway, in here it's saying that, look, it says, uh, unfortunately, modern society has devised many means for killing animals in different forms of life. For example, in the agricultural fields, there may be many mice, flies, and other creatures that disturb production, and sometimes they are killed by pesticides. In this verse, however, such killing is forbidden. There it is right there. Such killing is forbidden. Every living entity should be nourished by the food given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Human society should not consider itself the only enjoyer of all the proprieties, all the properties of God. Rather, men should understand that all the other animals also have a claim to God's property. In this verse, even the snake is mentioned, indicating that a householder should not be envious even of a snake. Yeah, and I've read books. Oh, I read one book about the culture of Armenia, and in previous times there was something called the house snake, and people would have a snake. They wouldn't search for the snake, right? But if there's a snake in their house, they wouldn't kill it. They would leave food for it and understand that this is our house snake.
In Indian culture also you would see that, Maharaj.
Yes.
If you see the older movies,
Uh-huh.
they would show these kinds of things.
Ah, okay. You see, it's not just one way. It's like it was traditional to have a house snake. Now, if you are afraid of the snake and immediately want to kill it, that is a very, very dangerous thing to do. And the snake will kill you. But if you feed the snake and are not afraid of it, then the snake will be let's say, a welcome to the family almost, and no one will try to kill it. Of course, as soon as the snake is, let's say, uh, becomes afraid, it will kill you. So it is normal that in households, especially in farms, there's going to be snakes. And traditionally, people would not kill the snakes. They would leave some food for the snake, and the snake would come and eat the food and not bother the people. Of course, today, I mean, anybody sees a snake in their house, they'll freak out right away. But snakes will not do anything to you if they're not, uh, you know, if they're not afraid. If they're, uh, if you just leave a little bit of food for the snake will come and eat it and leave you alone. But if you try to kill the snake, then obviously it's going to try and protect itself. It becomes very dangerous. So most, not all, but most animals uh, or like snakes and things like that, if you leave them alone and don't, uh, scare them, then they leave you alone. And it takes, a lot of faith in God to understand that. For example, if there's a snake living in your house, maybe down in the cellar or somewhere, There's no reason to kill it. If you leave it alone, it's not going to bother you. But most people would freak out completely and try to get it killed. So, uh, what to do? That's the question. What to do? Well, the idea is, as it says here, uh, for example, in the agricultural fields, there may be many mice, flies, and other creatures that disturb production, and sometimes they're killed by pesticides. In this verse, however, such killing is forbidden. Every living entity should be nourished by the food given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Human society should not consider itself the only enjoyer of the properties of God. Rather, men should understand that all the other animals also have a claim to God's property. In this verse, even the snake is mentioned. Here it is, indicating that a householder should not be envious even of a snake. So I've read in one book about the culture of Armenia. People would have a snake in the house. Not that they bought a snake and kept it in the house, but if there was a snake in the house, they wouldn't try and kill it. They would leave some food for it. And they were not afraid of the snake. Okay? Of course, they didn't, let's say, try and kill the snake. They would just let the snake live in their house. Now, today, if we're sitting here having a class and all of a sudden a snake, if you don't do anything, he'll just slither around and then find some hole and go into that hole. But most people would freak out completely and try and kill the snake. If you leave the snake alone, he's not going to do anything. He's not seeking to kill you. He's also looking for something to eat. Okay. So that's why it says here. Uh, um, one second. Unfortunately, modern society has devised many means for killing animals in different forms of life. For example, in the agricultural fields, there may be many mice, flies, and other creatures that disturb production, and sometimes they are killed by pesticides. In this verse, however, such killing is forbidden. Every living entity should be nourished by the food given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Human society should not consider itself the only enjoyer of all the properties of God. Rather, men should understand that all the other animals also have a claim to God's property. In this verse, even snake is mentioned, indicating that a householder should not be envious even of a snake. Now, do you know we have snakes in our farm? And you don't see them now, but when, it's like August, you'll see snakes. In fact, you'll see a lot of snakes at the farm. Fortunately, none of the snakes on this side of what do you call this side of the mountains, there are no snakes or very few snakes. So, but there are non-lethal snakes, and you'll see them at the farm in the summertime around August.
Yes, Maharaj. So one time, Maharaj, in summertime, Omar collected all these snakes in a bucket.
He'll do that.
there were more than like 70, 80 snakes.
Yeah.
Those like in one bucket.
Yeah.
And he was holding like this.
Yeah,
Like
playing with them.
like holding like in bunch and showing to everyone.
Omar will do that. He has this thing about snakes.
I was surprised how he was.
He's not afraid of the snakes at all.
And-
Well, most of the snakes on this side of the mountains are not,
Poisonous.
venomous. And I also catch snakes. I hold them by the tail and hold them up like this, and they sort of are not afraid because we're not trying to kill them. And then I let them go. But if you try and kill the snake, then the snake's going to try, even if it's not a poisonous snake, still it's going to try and protect itself. So, what is it called? Let's see. Even in India, they have. Forgot it, the name. But anyway, even in India, people would let the snakes live in their house. Right? They wouldn't invite the snake, but somehow or other, the snake would get into the house. They wouldn't come like in the kitchen, but they would be like underneath the house, and the people would leave something for the snake to eat every day. In Armenia, it was a common thing to have a snake in the house. Right? They would say it was done. What do you call it? In other words, they would say the house snake, and it was a common thing, especially in the farms, things like that. So, but snakes definitely are not going to seek you out to bite you. They will only bite if you try to kill them. Right. So there's no reason to be afraid of snakes. Of course, you shouldn't disturb them. That's the whole point. And they don't want to be disturbed. They're not trying to purposely attack you. It's only when they feel that they're going to be hurt that they will attack. So we shouldn't be afraid of snakes, but we shouldn't bother them. Yeah. Yeah, the people get freaked out completely by snakes. I mean, if there's a snake in a high school, there would be a complete, everyone is screaming,
Chaos.
running away and everything. But if you get Omar there, he would not run away. He'd say, "Hey, wait, don't worry, I'll take care of it." Yeah. Now, fortunately, most of the snakes that you find on this side of the mountains are not venomous. They look venomous. They're big, thick ones like this. They're usually about 4 feet. They look extremely dangerous, but they're not venomous. They're not poisonous. We have them every summer. We have them at the farm. You've seen?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Many times if you are plucking vegetables or doing something, you will see.
Yeah,
They're
you'll
just
see
running.
them. Yeah.
Because generally they are hiding underneath something, either cardboard or something. They are hiding.
Yeah, the cardboard, exactly.
They are trying to find a
Yeah,
space somewhere.
yeah. It's nature. What can you do? They have a right to live also. Actually, it's good to have snakes. They eat, mice, things like that. Right? So they could be actually a good neighbor.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so that's why it says here. Every living entity should be nourished by the food given by the Supreme Personality of God. Human society should not consider itself the only enjoyer of all the properties of God. Rather, men should understand that all the other animals also have a claim to God's profit. In this verse, even the snake is mentioned, indicating that a householder should not be envious even of a snake. Yeah, in Armenia, it would be uh, done. Uh, the house snake. People would always have a house snake. Not always, but there would be a house snake, so they wouldn't kill the snake, and they would leave food for the snake. So in this verse, the snake is mentioned, indicating that a householder should not be envious even of a snake. If everyone is fully satisfied by eating food that is a gift from the Lord, why should there be envy between one living being and another? In modern days, people are very much inclined toward communistic ideas of society, but we do not think that there can be any better communistic idea than that which is explained in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Even in the communistic countries, the poor animals are killed without consideration, although they are also have the right to take their allotted food with which to live. Okay. And therefore it says, in this verse, even the snake is mentioned, indicating that a householder should not be envious even of a snake. Here it is. If everyone is fully satisfied by eating food that is a gift from the Lord, why should there be envy between one living being and another? Okay. So, and it was traditional in Armenia that there would be a snake in the house. They wouldn't try and kill it. They would leave food for it. And I'm sure it's other cultures also. It's like that. Text 10. No, but if you try and kill the snake, then that's a different. Then a snake will bite you. Well, most people freak out completely when they see a snake. If that happens, you should call Omar. No. He'll be playing with the snake. Okay, so Canto 7, chapter 14, and text number, what is it? 10. Even if one is a householder rather than a brahmachari, a sannyasi, or a vanaprastha, one should not endeavor very hard for religious, economic development, or satisfaction of the sense. Even in householder life, one should be satisfied to maintain body and soul together with whatever is available with minimum endeavor, according to place and time. By the grace of the Lord, one should not engage oneself in ugra karma. Ugra karma means overexerting yourself for sense gratification. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In human life, there are four principles to be followed: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. First, one should be religious, observing various rules and regulations. And then one must earn some money for maintenance of the family and the satisfaction of his son. The most important ceremony for sense gratification is marriage, because sexual intercourse is one of the principal necessities of the material body. Although sexual intercourse is not a very exalted requisite, In life, both animals and men require some sense gratification because of material propensity. One should be satisfied with married life and not expect energy for extra sense gratification or sex life. As for economic development, the responsibility for this should be entrusted mainly to the Vaishyas and Grihas. Human society should be divided into varnas and ashrams. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha. Economic development is necessary for Grihasthas. Brahmana Grihasthas should be satisfied with a life of adhyana, adhyana, adhipana, yajana, and yajana. Being learned scholars, teaching others to be scholars, learning how to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, and also teaching others how to worship Lord Vishnu or even demigods. So those are the four types of work that devotees should be engaged in. A Brahmana should do this without remuneration, but he is allowed to accept charity from a person whom he teaches how to be a human being. As for the Kshatriyas, they are supposed to be kings of the land, and the land should be distributed to the Vaishyas for agricultural activities, cow protection, and trade. Sudras must work. Sometimes they should engage in occupational duties as cloth manufacturers, weavers, blacksmiths, goldsmiths, brassmiths, and so on, or else they should engage in hard labor to produce food grains. These are the different occupational duties by which men should earn their livelihood, and in this way, human society should be simple. And notice he didn't say you can grow marijuana and smoke it and sell it. At the present moment, however, everyone is engaged in technological advancement, which is described in Bhagavad Gita as ugra karma, extremely severe endeavor. This ugra karma is the cause of agitation within the human mind. Men are engaging in many sinful activities and becoming degraded by opening slaughterhouses, breweries, and cigarette factories, as well as nightclubs and other establishments for sense enjoyment. In this way, they are spoiling their lives. Very important statement. In all these activities, of course, householders are involved, and therefore it is advised here with the use of the word api that even though one is a householder, one should not engage himself in severe hardships. One's means of livelihood should be extremely simple. As for those who are not grihastas, the brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis, they don't have to do anything but strive for advancement in spiritual life. This means that 3/4 of the entire population should stop sense gratification and simply be engaged in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Only 1/4 of the population should be grihasta, and that should be according to laws of restricted sense gratification. The grihastas, vanaprasthas, brahmacharis, and sannyasis should endeavor together with their total energy to become Krishna conscious. This type of civilization is called Daiva Varsh, Deva Varsh, Varna Shrama. Sorry, Daiva Varna Shrama. One of the objectives of the Krishna consciousness movement is to establish this Daiva Varna Shrama. but not to encourage so-called varnashrama without scientifically organized endeavor by human society. But not to encourage so-called varnashrama without scientifically organized endeavor by human society. So that means that the grihastas, the vanaprasthas, the brahmacharis, and the sannyasis should endeavor together with their total energy to become Krishna conscious. This type of civilization is called Daiva Varnashrama. One of the objectives of the Krishna consciousness movement is to establish this Daiva Varnashrama, but not to encourage so-called Varnashrama without scientifically organized endeavor by human society. So, if we have brahmacharis, if we have grihastas, brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis, they don't have to do anything but strive for advancement in spiritual life. This means that 3/4 of the entire population should stop at sense gratification and simply be engaged in advancement of Krishna consciousness. Only 1/4 of the population should be grihasta, and that should be according to laws of restricted sense gratification. The grihastas, vanaprasthas, brahmacharis, and sannyasis should endeavor together with their total energy to become Krishna conscious. This type of civilization is called Daiva Varnashrama. One of the objectives of the Krishna consciousness movement is to establish this Daiva Varnashrama, but not to encourage so-called Varnashrama without scientifically organized endeavor by human society. Okay, so this is our takeaway for today, where it says, one's means of livelihood should be extremely simple. As for those who are not grihasta, the brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis, they don't have to do anything but strive for advancement in spiritual life. This means that 3/4 of the entire population should stop sense gratification and simply be engaged in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Only 1/4 of the population should be grihasta, and that should be according to laws of restricted sense gratification. There it is. Prabhupada is explaining the perfect culture right there. Okay, I think our time is up. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
I have a question. If it says this means that only 1/4 of the population should be engaged in grihastha kind of lifestyle, and 3/4 should be in the other varnashramas, like brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. Then does this mean there should be fewer women in the society, Maharaj? Because women mostly are in the grihastha ashrama. Because we don't have women as, or not traditionally as brahmacharis or sannyasis, maybe as vanaprasthas. Does it mean there should be fewer women in the society?
No, here it says, as for those who are not grihastas, not married, the brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis, they don't have to do anything but strive for advancement in spiritual life. This means that 3/4 of the entire population should stop sense gratification and simply be engaged in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Well, that 3/4, that includes women. It's not just men.
So women can be brahmacharis and sannyasis, Maharaj?
They can live like brahmacharis.
Mm.
They can live like brahmacharis. There's so many women like that in Krishna consciousness. They simply, at a certain point in their life, they no longer have to take care of the family, children, they're grown up. And now the mother, even sometimes, will leave the home and go to a holy place, pilgrimage, and stay there and be engaged in spiritual activities the rest of their life. You see many of them, women like that in India. They just walk away from the house and they walk to Vrindavan, and they have places where women like that can stay, basically for free. And the women do, service, uh, and then, but most of the time they're chanting Hare Krishna, and until they die. And you see the women like that. One time when I was in Vrindavan, this one old lady came up to me and started speaking, Hindi. I couldn't understand what she was saying, but I can understand she wanted me to give her a nice fruit. I forget. She kept pointing at it and smiling and speaking in Hindi. So I bought the fruit. I gave it to her.
Very good.
So she was just begging like that, and it wasn't a wrong thing. It was a proper thing. She did not have any money. She was just living in Vrindavan, but she liked a certain type of fruit. So she came and smiled and pointed to it, and she was talking in Hindi. I finally understood what she was doing, trying to do, and I bought the fruit for her, and she was very happy. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you have. Well, there are some false beggars, but there are some sincere beggars also. So we should be very careful, especially the older ladies. They no longer have family. They're living, without any money, predominant. And they like to have sometimes mango or something like that. So we should give it to them. Okay, well, where's Sheila Prabhupada Ki Jai? Our takeaway for today. The Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, Brahmacharis, and Sannyas should endeavor together with their total energy to become Krishna conscious. This type of civilization is called Daiva Varnashram. One of the objectives of the Krishna consciousness movement is to establish this Daiva Varnashram, but not to encourage so-called Varnashrama without scientifically organized endeavor by human society. So in other words, Daiva means like spiritual Varnashrama. So when the real purpose of people is to make spiritual advancement, not to simply eat and sleep, mate and defend, make spiritual advancement. So that's why it says only 1/4 of the population should be Grihasta, and that should be according to the laws of restricted sense gratification. The Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and Brahmacharis and the Sannyas should endeavor together with their total energy to become Krishna conscious. This type of civilization is called Daiva Varnashram. One of the objectives of Krishna consciousness movement is to establish this Daiva Varnashram, but not to encourage so-called Varnashrama without scientifically organized endeavor by human society. So in other words, 3/4, an ideal culture, 3/4 of the people are engaged in serious spiritual activities. And 1/4 are to maintain them.
Mm.
So that is a certain type of civilization called Daiva Varnashram. And it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, I think we'll stop right there and think about this until tomorrow.
One question, Maharaj.
Yes.
In the purport of text 5,
Okay, go ahead.
so towards the end of purport, last 4 or 5 lines, it starts with, one should be satisfied
Yeah.
with whatever means of life comes automatically. One should be satisfied with whatever means of life comes automatically. So my question is, Maharaj, how to draw that line? What is coming automatically versus we are putting a lot of extra effort to get it? Like, it can be anything.
Okay, that's a good question. I'll give you a personal experience that I had. I one day something came into my mind. So one day I purchased a I purchased the rights to some kind of to have something, right? And I also what do you call that? I forget the words. Anyway, I own this thing, right? And I went to the through the process of claiming it as my property.
Is it a domain, Maharaj? Domain name?
Yeah, something like that. And about a few days after I did that, I get a call from a lawyer, and he says, "I represent a famous person. Who's a famous person?" And he said that my client wants to have the property that you just registered. And I said, "Well, okay, but I registered it because I wanted it." Right? He said he's ready to pay whatever you want. Now I didn't know that somebody wanted that property, and without knowing it, I registered that property, and then I get this call by a lawyer, and he says I'm representing a very prominent person, and I said okay, and he said, "Well, how much money do you want?" So I was a little naive at that time, right? So I said, "I want so much money." I could have said much more, and they would have given it to me. But I didn't want to, for some reason or other, I didn't feel like, I should try and be really greedy. So they gave me the money, and I was happy to get that money. But I realized that these were very, very rich people. And later on, I felt I could have asked for a lot more money. I don't know why I said, not so much money. But then afterwards, I said, I don't care. But I didn't know ahead of time that this property or whatever it was, was
Businessmen.
so much searched by other people, especially wealthy people. So it was just Krishna's mercy. So sometimes we, do things without knowing the value. And then later on, we find out that's very, very valuable. Anyway, I didn't argue about it. And I could have asked for a lot more money than what I asked for, not really realizing who the people were. They were very, very rich people, but they went to the lawyer. So anyway, I didn't make any fuss about it. I was happy to get whatever they gave. So therefore, here our takeaway is it says, a wise man, however, learns from the Shastras and Guru that we living entities are all eternal, but are put into troublesome conditions because of associating with different modes under the laws of material nature. He therefore concludes that in the human form of life, he should not endeavor for unnecessary necessities, but should it should not,
So-
but should live a very simple life, just maintaining body and soul together. Certainly, one requires some means of livelihood, and according to one's varna and asrama, this means of livelihood is described in the Shastra. One should be satisfied with this. Therefore, instead of hankering for more and more money, a sincere devotee of the Lord tries to invent some way to earn his livelihood, and when he does so, Krishna helps him. Earning one's life, therefore, is not a problem. The real problem is how to get free from the bondage of birth, death, and old age. Attaining this freedom and not inventing unnecessary necessities is the basic principle of Vedic civilization. There it is. Very important statement. Hare Krishna, yes. Go ahead.
Yes, Maharaj. So when you were answering Adidev Prabhu's question, was that like, I think I recall you had mentioned that thing with the copyright. Was that like the Princess of Monaco, who the lawyer came to you
Yes.
with? I remember.
I registered the name Stephanie, which was one of the daughters of the King of Monaco. And very quickly after that, after I registered the name legally, I get a call from a lawyer who represented Stephanie and said that, he wanted to buy that name. And he said, how much do you want? And I was a little bit surprised by the whole thing. I didn't think that anything like that would happen. And so I said some amount. It was not, exorbitant. Of course, they were very happy and right away gave me the money. And there was it's one of those serendipitous events in life. Something you never expected, and it happened like that. Right? So I was satisfied with the money I got. I could have asked for millions of dollars. They might have given it to me also, But I didn't. I said, just give me this much. I'll be satisfied. So there are situations like that. They're called serendipitous situations. Look that word up, serendipitous. I didn't know that I was going to register the name Stephanie, and then get a large amount of money. Yeah.
It says, Maharaj,
Serendipitous.
occurring or discovered by chance
Yes,
in a happy or beneficial way.
yes. It's like my mother, when she first came to the United States, after she got out of the boat or uh, she came with a big, what do you call it? Steamer.
Steamer.
She comes out and steps. She puts her feet in the United States of America, right? She's really, very excited. And as she's walking away from the boat, she sees a $10 bill. And she said, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I thought."
Hare Krishna.
She said, "I'm not going to touch it because people think I'm greedy." So she walked past the money. My mother says, after that, she never saw money on the ground again. My mother was a very funny person. She would always tell funny jokes like that. But yeah, I didn't know that by purchasing the name Stephanie would lead to immediately getting thousands and thousands of dollars. I didn't know that. I like the name Stephanie. It's one of the names of the King of Monaco's, one of his daughters. But I like the name Stephanie, so I registered right away. A week or two after that, a lawyer called me and said that my client wants to purchase the name from, that I owned, and he wanted me to give him a number, how much money I owned. So that was serendipitous situation, and I made thousands of dollars without doing anything other than registering the name of Stephanie. Now after that, I realized that there were professionals who registered names, thousands of names, right, with the hope that they'll hit the jackpot. So there are people that do that. That's their business. They keep registering names or registering something with the hope that they can, hit the jackpot. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Maharaj, we have stopped at text 10, so 11 will be.
Text 10. Text. 9, 10. Okay, I'm ready. Thank you. All glories to Prabhupada. Thank you. Thank you.